Hey guys, I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and today I'm making a journal with my Steam and Satin Story Junk Journal Kit. Steam and Satin, a well-regarded tailor shop, has been entrusted with dressing the city's elite for an important social event. But when a shipment of rare fabrics and custom embellishments vanishes, Master Tailor Nathaniel Alden suspects sabotage. In this kit, we explore the story from Nathaniel's point of view over 8 journal entries. If you're interested in crafting along with me, then use the link in the description down below to check out my Etsy shop and get your copy of this kit. For supplies today, you will need a pair of scissors to cut everything out, a bookbinding kit or replacements for each of these items, so a pokey tool to poke holes to bind everything with, a needle with a large eye to accommodate your string. For string, I'm using a dark wax thread, but you can also use embroidery floss, you can use dental floss, you can use anything you like to bind your journal with. Something about this size will work. And you'll also need a bone folder or another way of flattening out your creases like the back of your scissors or your thumbnail. For adhesives, I like my Beacon Fabri-Tac, but you can use any liquid glue with a fine point for this project. And if you like a glue stick, I recommend the Oohoo glue stick. I might use this once or twice, but I will primarily be using my Fabri-Tac. You will also need some binder clips or some large paper clips or another way to kind of sandwich your pages together to poke the holes in them. You might also like to use some extra embellishments such as lace, leather, ribbon, or little gears. There is a shopping list for this project in the description down below, so you can head down there if you want to know where I got anything that I've used today. Now, I'm not going to touch on these very much. I might play with them a bit at the end, but primarily for this project, we're just going to use the kit and some basic tools. The last thing I'd like to note is I did use vintage photo distress ink on the edge of almost everything, and I have done it ahead of time. This is an optional step, but I feel like it makes the project look a little more finished. So you can do this if you want to. Pages are marked with my recommendation of paper or cardstock for printing. I use 110-pound cardstock, and I also use 32-pound paper. I tried to balance the thickness of the finished journal with durability for this project. You can make adjustments if you think the final book will get a lot of wear and tear. Say children, grandchildren might be going through it a bunch. You can opt to print more things on cardstock if you feel like you need to. Just remember, this is going to make your journal a little bit heftier. This journal is going to be made up of 6 pages printed front and back, as well as a cover. And I'm going to show you my pages really quickly. I tried to number the files, so this was really easy for you to do. So page 1 has page 2 on the back. Page 3 has page 4 on the back. Page 5 has page 6 on the back. 7 has 8. 9 has 10 on the back, and 11 has 12 on the back. And I just wanted to show you all those so you could have a reference for when you go to print your own out to make sure everything looks correct, because the order does matter on these for this project. For the cover, you're going to need 1 sheet of 110-pound cardstock that is plain, 2 copies of backer paper 1 printed on paper, and then 1 copy of paper 13 printed on cardstock. So backer paper is the little Steam and Satin print. Page 13 is just kind of blank with a little bit of an embellishment, and then 1 piece of plain 110-pound cardstock. So now that I have all of those directions out of the way, I am going to go ahead and get my papers trimmed up. I did want you to see that you get a white border when you print your pages, so make sure you trim all of these white borders off for all of these pages, these 6 pieces of paper here, as well as the pieces that you're going to need for the cover. I know there are a couple more papers included with the kit. We are not using those today. I included those for those of you who like to do your own thing. So you would have some more journaling pages. If you wanted to make a journal, you can write in, that kind of thing. So if you don't see something mentioned, I didn't forget about it. There are just a few extras in this kit that I don't use in this project. All right, so let's build our cover panel first. So I'm going to start with that piece of 110-pound cardstock that is blank on both sides. This is the same cardstock I used to print on, so nothing special here. Here's my trimmed up page 13. I put some distress ink around the edges, and I'm going to put that to the side. And then my 2 pages, backer paper 1 on paper, and I trimmed those up as well. All right, and I've raised my camera up just a little bit so you can see better. And the first thing I'm going to do is glue these two pieces together so that they overlap a little bit. We're just going to overlap about, I don't know, a half an inch to an inch. Use your judgment. Basically, you want them to overlap but still have room to glue this other plain piece in the center and then be able to fold the edges over. So you're going to want at least an inch all the way around the edges to do that little fold over. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac so I can kind of squidge it around a little bit. And let's go from the front. It might be a little easier for you to see. That white doesn't read very well on camera, and I'm just smearing this down. You can use your glue stick if you want, not a problem. And then I'm going to make sure these are facing the same direction. A lot of this will be covered up, so I wouldn't stress over it being perfect. But I'm just going to smooth that and get a nice little overlap there just to extend our kind of patterned piece, our space here. Now I'm going to flip this to the back side, and it's pretty much in camera. I don't want to grab that plain piece of cardstock. A little hard to see what I'm doing just because of white on white, but I am adding my Fabri-Tac. Again, a glue stick can work really well here. I just have a preference. So I am going around all the edges, and then I'm just going to put a generous kind of swirl all around on the middle, on the inside. Lots and lots of glue, because sometimes the cardstock will suck it up just a little bit as you're trying to get that much surface covered. And then I'm going to flip that over, drop it in the center, and then grab my bone folder, and I'm just going to squidge that out all over the place. It's my word lately, squidge. So we're smoothing that all the way to the edges. Now we need to trim this down a little bit. Again, it might be a little hard to see. I have a ruler. You can also use your bone folder as a bit of a guide if you want. This does not have to be perfect, but I'm just going to plop this ruler down next to my cardstock and draw a line. So this is butted up against, and this ruler is about an inch wide. So however you like to do it, I'm going to just make a 1 inch kind of border, and you can see I actually got really close on that side, so I'm not even going to cut it there. It is at about 1 inch. And then same thing on this side. And just a little bit off of this top. I'm not even sure that that is worth cutting. I might leave that be. And it's also fairly straight, which I am surprised at. So grab my scissors, and I'm going to trim these sides up. You can eyeball this as well. You don't have to draw lines. It doesn't have to be nice and neat, because we're going to cover all these edges up. So don't worry about it being perfect. And I'm just getting that excess off so it's not bulky. All right, so you can kind of see my paper, my cardstock here in the center, and then my surrounding paper on the outside edge. And then I'm going to cut a little angle here, not all the way to the corner, just outside the corner, like so. Just give it a little nip on the corner. If you go all the way to the corner, you're going to have kind of a naked corner. It's going to poke through a little bit. It's not as big of a deal with this thin of material. If you're using bookbinding board or something like that on a heftier project, it would make a difference, but not so much on this. So get rid of my little triangles. And then we're going to wrap this right around. So careful not to fold your cardstock by accident. I am just going to fold that right over, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to give that a nice sharp crease. So we're building a simple cover with very little supplies to hold our pages, to make our journal in. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these two down. These are the long sides, top and bottom. Again, you can use your glue stick if you like. I'm going to use the Fabri-Tac and use my bone folder to firm that crease up and smush the glue around. Same thing on the other long side. And then we're going to repeat that on the short sides. So fold that up and fold it up. And you can see I got very close to eyeballing it there and almost lost. If you have a little gap here, if you cut something wrong and you have a little gap, don't worry, most of it will be covered up. If you have distress ink, put a little distress ink there to cover up any white paper, and don't worry about it. Nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna notice it. And that last short side. There we go. So now we have something that looks like this. We've got our print on one side and then we have our fold over on the other. And now I'm going to grab that piece of cardstock that we trimmed up with paper 13 on it, and that is going to glue right in the center of this and hide our white and all of our seams. So I'm going to go ahead and get glue around all of these edges. Now you can round the corners on this if you want to get fancy and you have a corner rounding punch. Feel free to make this project your own with little touches as you go along. If you have an idea, do the idea. Do some fun things. I provide these tutorials for you so that you can get past the scary part, trying to come up with the ideas, and you can get right to the creating and then making it your own with little touches. So let's see here. This one, it doesn't really have an up or a down, so I'm not going to worry about which way it's facing. And then since I've got that liquid glue, I can kind of move this around until I'm happy with how it's centered. And I'm going to smooth that down with my bone folder, getting that glue to the edges. And now we have a nice sturdy cover panel that we can use to hold all of our paper pages. And I'm going to set this to the side and let it dry really well before I try to fold it in half, because I find that if you try to fold too soon, that you're going to have a bad time. So I'm going to put this to the side and let it dry well. And let's talk about our pages again. All right, so I have my 6 papers that are printed front and back, and I've got all my edges trimmed off. So now we're gonna have to fold these in half, and I'm gonna show you what order that they go in. So I'm kind of working backwards. This is page 12 and 11, and I'm just gonna fold this right in half with the print on the outside and try to do this as neatly as I can. Use my bone folder. Now you can ink around the edges of these pages as well. I skipped that. I've had enough ink today. I've run out. So here is my Kraken page, page 10, I believe, and page 9. And then I'm going to nest this right on the outside of 11 and 12. So this is our center spread. And we're going to kind of work out. Here's our next page, folding that in half, and then nesting that right on the outside of the previous 2 pages. And I'm just going to show you each one, because I think if I try to tell you numbers for each one, I'm going to get confused. So I do have these in order. They're kind of in the order that they printed off the printer. So there we go, right on the outside. Got our postage here. And then finally our shops. And that nests right on the outside. So you should be able to page through And everything should be in the same order as mine if you printed it the same way. Now, if you get one of these back prints on the wrong front print, don't worry about it. It's fine. The back prints aren't as important. I did design it with certain prints in mind, but just adapt, adjust. It's not a big deal. The big important part are these front prints. So all of the odd numbered ones, those are the ones that go in a certain order and tell the story. So one last look at those. And there we go. So I've got these all together, and now I'm going to bring my cover back over. So I am just going to very carefully, and if I feel like it's not moving well, it might need more dry time. So if it's not folding very nicely, give it some more time to dry. If yours just might not be dry yet, if you're getting a lot of buckling or anything weird. So I'm just going to match those corners up. It's going to be a little stiff. And my seam, that popping sound was my seam here, popping up just a little bit. I must not have gotten enough glue under there. Not a big deal. I can touch that up. So I need to primarily make sure that these two corners are matching up. This is going to be a little tough. You can do it. We can all do it. And there we go. So this is a little thick, but now we have a nice sturdy cover to contain our book. All right, so I popped a little glue under that seam to flatten it down again. And I've got this folded, and I'm actually going to open and close this a few times, go back and forth and loosen up this spine just a little bit because we want it to move nicely. And this is a pretty stiff piece of cardstock, but we did build a cover out of basic items instead of having to get anything special. So there is pluses and minuses to this method. So I'm just moving this back and forth a couple times, creasing it down, opening it up, creasing it open. And that is going to let it move better when I want to open and close my journal. So I'm pretty happy with this now. It looks good. I had a little pop-up here. I'm going to ignore it. It doesn't bother me. You can always glue those back down, smooth them back down. But once it's all together, some of those little things will disappear. So let's go ahead and grab our pages, and these are going to go right inside of this, and we're going to center them up visually, top to bottom. And this is where our binder clips are going to come in. So I'm going to grab my little binder clip. I'm going to fold this up, and I'm going to pop that on. Now you can use large paper clips or any other way you want to secure it, or you can just throw caution to the wind and skip this step and move on to the next step. But now they're all kind of held together, and they're all in the crease, and they're all centered up, and they're not going to move on me. So now I have this template. This template was with one of the cover panels, and I cut it out. So we're going to use this as a guide to punch the holes. So I'm going to nest this right down in here, and it should line up with the pages top and bottom. It should just nudge right up there. If you want, you can use an extra binder clip to hold this in place. Otherwise, you can just kind of hold it with your hand. I'm going to start with the center hole. It doesn't matter which hole you start with. And I'm just going to grab my pokey tool. I'm going to put it in there, and I am going to punch through. It might take a little bit of elbow grease. I actually have several pieces of cardboard that are stuck together. They're glued together. They were just some Amazon boxes. And so sometimes I like to just do this kind of a thing. And now I am through, right like so. And then make sure that I'm all lined up and repeat that for the other two holes. If you find that this is too tough, you could just do the pages first and then do the cover using the same template or using the pages as a guide. So there are a couple ways you can do this if you're having a hard time punching through all of these. Sometimes pushing straight down into that mat is really what you need. So there we go. Now I've got my holes. I'm going to make sure that I push through there like so. And then you're going to have a little bit of tear out, a little bit of fluff. I don't worry about it too much. You could just kind of poke it back in there a little bit, but we're going to run the strings through and it might pull it right back out. So And I've got my string and we're going to bind this together. So I'm going to do about 3 lengths of my journal. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give that a snip. And I think for me, I want the strings on the outside. If you want your strings on the inside, then start on the inside. If you want them on the outside, start on the outside. Here's my needle. I'm just going to thread that just like you would sewing anything else. Long tail, short tail. And I'm going to go straight in through the center hole into the middle so that my tail is on the outside. And I'm going to leave enough that I can tie a knot. Then I'm going to come back through and go through one of the sides. I'm doing the top side. It doesn't matter which one. So now I've got that kind of pulled. And I'm going to go all the way to the other side and go back through to the middle, to the inside rather. Pull that nice and tight without pulling my string through. And then we're going to go back through the middle, and you want to make sure that you don't go through your string. So push through and then come up on the opposite side of that long center string. And then pull your other tail through, pull it all tight. Make sure this long string is in between your 2 little arms here, and then make a knot. So 1, right over left, left over right. I think that's the right kind of knot. The wax thread is nice because you give it a little mush and it'll stick to itself. And then I'm going to leave my strings. I might hang some gears or something off of those later if I feel like it. And I can take off my binder clips. And now I have my journal all put together. All right, so now we are ready to start decorating the pages. Just as a reminder, I have already printed and cut out everything ahead of time. You can just cut out what you need as you need it. And I have also done the vintage photo distress ink around almost everything. So I am going to start with this inside cover. And the first thing we want to put in is this really big pocket. And it is just going to pop in right here on the inside of the front cover. So the little stitches go to the top, and I'm going to glue 3 sides of this with a nice thin line of glue, the right, left, and bottom. I've got some stringy things and got some stuff going on here. So right, left, and bottom. And then because this is such a deep pocket, I'm actually going to come up about 1.5 to 2 inches and put a little extra glue there so that I don't lose things down inside of this pocket. I want them to sit up high. I'm just going to put this in. It should go just about all the way to the edge. And I think I'm going to match that up to the bottom as well, to my inside panel. So give that a smooth. And now on top of that, I'm going to grab this little envelope piece. And you can see I've already pre-folded it and I've put a little distress ink. There are 4 of these, and these are all going together the same. So I probably won't show it again. You can assemble all of them right now if you want. But there are 2 little tabs that we are going to fold in. 1, 2, and then we're going to put glue on those and then fold that up. And I just put the distress ink on there so I don't have to print the back side, just for a little peekaboo effect. But you can print the back side if you want. So there, that is glued. And I'm going to flip that over. And that is where I put the ink in. And I'm going to attach this towards the bottom, right like so. So I'm just going to glue the whole thing down so it's nice and stable. You could make this another pocket if you wanted, but for my design, that's not really necessary. And I'm just going to center that right up on this pocket here. And then I'm going to let that dry before I try to put anything inside of it. Next, I've got my little label, Journal of Nathaniel Alden. That is going to center up right here. You can use the stitches as a guide. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. Try to get it fairly even. And then on this facing page, we've got a couple of things to put in here. So I've got this long cardstock strip. I'm going to glue this in as a side tuck on this page. So I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to glue the top, bottom, and the left. Now there are two of these. It doesn't matter which one you use on which page, but if you want to look carefully at the gear print, you can see which one I am using. But if you grab the other one, it's not a big deal. And I'm going to place this in. I'm just going to lift up my page so I can make sure I'm not overshooting it. And it should line up at the top and the bottom. If you have a little overhang on the other side, you can always trim that off later. Neaten it up. Next we have some little straps. One has rivets, the other one does not. The one that has rivets, we're going to fold it right along the line here where the rivet panel meets the strap itself. I want you to give that a fold. And then I placed a stress ink along this crease because you might be able to see a little bit of that when you fold it up. And then we're going to glue this other strap directly to the back. So it's a double-sided strap. So I'm going to get some glue in here. Again, your choice, liquid or glue stick. And then I'm just going to line those up and give them a good press down. And I'm going to come back to my journal and I'm going to glue this tab down so that I have a little bit of a flippy action going on. And you might need to hold this in place a little bit. I'm going to go a little thinner on my glue so it doesn't move around. And I'm going to try to find the center of the page and press that tab down. So I've just glued down the rivet section there. I'm going to try to make sure it's straight. These double-sided straps also come with these riveted little tuck pieces on the same page. And we're going to place that here so that we can pull that in and out. And I'm just going to put a little glue at the top and the bottom of this. Just a tiny bit, not too much. If you use too much, you might accidentally glue your strap in. And then I'm just going to do that. Just a quick press down and then leave it be. Let it dry. Don't mess with it. Let's go back to our inside page and hopefully things are dry. If they're not dry enough, then leave them to dry a little longer. And this is where you can have a little fun personalizing your journal. I've provided a bunch of character cards for you so you can decide what Nathaniel looks like. I also have a bunch of women in here. We do have a female character elsewhere in our story. If you want to omit this label and do a whole different main character, you should be able to do that. Not too big of a deal. So I've chosen this handsome gentleman as my Nathaniel, and I've got a little tab here that says innovative on it. And I'm going to glue that to the top of his card. Right like so. Just for a little bit of interest. And then I have one of these fabric journal cards. And I'm just going to place both of these up into this large top pocket. Now for my smaller pocket, I'm going to get some of these order cards. And they are numbered and they do go in order so that you can have like right, left, and middle tabs. So I'm starting with 2210 and then 11 and 12. So they should all go in order and they can go in order through the journal and you'll have nice symmetrical cards. So I'm going to just pop these right in here, chase it down. And then flipping back here carefully, in case it's not dry, I'm going to pull this strap open. And I have a couple of these special custom orders. And I'm going to put those right into this tuck and hold them in with this strap. And you should be able to tuck that right back in there. If you're having trouble getting this in, grab your scissors and go under here and give it a little lift so it's not so flat, and it'll be easier to get that in and out. And that is our first spread. So let's go ahead and turn the page and work on the next one. So we have our storefront here. If you have Gilded Gear Marketplace, you might recognize this image from the Steam and Satin folio. And let me go through here. I have journal entry 1 as well as one of these little corner pieces. And we're going to glue this corner piece in right up here. And then we'll have to wait for this to dry before we put entry 1 in. I'm going to put this all the way up into this top corner. So it's at the top edge and the left side of the page. And then let's just set this to the side really quick, and let's grab this angled pockets to go on the facing page. We're going to want, there's 2 of these. We want the one that is angled this way and not this way. So if that makes sense. And we're just going to glue this in. So we're going to glue the straight sides. We're going to flip it over and I'm going to turn it just so it's easier. And I am just gluing this long side and then the bottom. Flipping back, and I'm centering this between the stitching at the top and the bottom of the page. And I'm going just about all the way to the edge. You can go all the way to the edge if you want. Right about yay. And we're going to decorate this. We're going to do a little bit of embellishment. So I have one of these kind of crazy gear buttons. I have this fussy cut of a jacket, one of my gears that's fussy cut out, and then a couple pieces of this tape. Now you might notice some of the tape is on paper, some is on cardstock. It doesn't matter. I just fit them into the pages efficiently wherever they would go. So some are on one, some are on the other. And these little tape pieces, if you did Professor Cogsworth's notebook with me, you'll remember this. We're going to do a little bit of tearing. So I'm going to tear a piece of this printed one, and I'm going to tear a piece of this stitched one, and I'm going to make like an interesting little crisscross here. We're going to layer over it. So I'm not worried about making sure the ends have ink on them or anything like that. You can be a little more meticulous about that if you want, but we're just building some layers. We're doing a little collage work. So here's my stitched piece. And you can have fun with this. You can use any of them. You don't have to use the same ones I have. And let's do something like that. And then our gear is going to kind of pop in up here, just above those. And try to make sure I don't glue my pocket shut. You can always pop that back up later. You need to. I have a little glue back there. I'm going to kind of wipe that off with my finger. And then my jacket is going to go down here. Make sure I get glue on all the little bits and bobs there. I'm going to put it a little bit towards the right because this button is going to go right here. And you can pick, there's extra buttons. I didn't use all of them in the design. Only 2 of them get used, so you have some spares to pick from. You can choose any of them that you like for this. And I'm just going to pop that right there. So now we've got our collage accent on our facing page. Once this is all dry, you can go ahead and put your ephemera in. This entry 1 is going to go into this corner tuck. And then I have some ephemera pieces for this angled pocket. I have all of these fancy jackets, the automaton owl, and then one of the alteration tickets. There are 6 of these. I only use 4. There are 2 spares. So feel free to double up or pick which one you want, whichever one you feel makes sense to go in different areas. And I'm just going to fill that pocket up with goodies. And that is the second spread. All right, we're going to turn the page again and work on the third spread. So we're going to start with this kind of belly band here with all the clothing on it. And it is going to go in right about here. And we're just going to glue the two sides, the ends. And I'm going to glue, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch on each side. Like so. And then we'll let that dry really well before we do anything with it. And on the facing page, I'm going to get entry 2, unraveling plans, and I'm going to glue this all the way down. We're going to do a little collage work again. Glue stick would work great for this, but loving my liquid glue right now. So I'm just going to pop that down. There we go. And then I'm going to get this piece of tape that's blue with the chain stitch on it. And we're going to cut a couple little pieces of tape. I'm going to tear the end of this here. And then I'm going to tear another end here. And then you can leave this either rough edge or you can ink it. I'm going to leave it rough edge. And we're going to make this look like it's taped in or stitched in maybe. I'm going to do a second one down here on the bottom corner. Like so. And if you want things to poke out over the edge, you can. I'm going to keep mine fairly neat. I think Nathaniel's a fairly neat gentleman. And then there is this little delivered stamp, and we're going to stamp that right there. You can pick an angle that you find appealing. And stamp that right on there. And I'm going to slide this to the side because now we have an envelope to build. We've got this shipping manifest, an envelope, and a tag. So here's our envelope. And you're going to want to crease it along the 4 lines. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're going to have this little Skylift Express Logistics. Here's what the inside looks like. And I inked all over the top just to hide that so I didn't have to print the entire back side of the envelope. We're going to fold in the right hand side. We've got the big tab at the top. Fold in the left hand side. It should say shipping manifest inside. And we're going to run a bead of glue right down this right flap to glue that together. Then we're going to take our little bottom flap, put some glue on that, and fold it up. For the shipping manifest, we're going to fold this so that it can slide down inside. I found the best place to fold it is right under where it says 10 yards and right above additional notes. You can see I folded mine twice. I liked how that looked. I inked it up. It looked like somebody couldn't get it in the envelope and then they redid it, which is exactly what happened. It was me. I did that. And then once your envelope is dry, you can go ahead and tuck that down inside. If you give it a little squeeze, it'll be easier to pop that in. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put it this way so that the flap is up and it says shipping manifest inside. And you're going to want to make sure this is glued down well because see, I'm catching. So I'm actually going to back that back out and I'm going to stick a little glue under this because I don't want to catch that, especially some of our little friends who might go through these might not be so careful. But the wonderful thing is if something gets torn or just damaged, you can print a new one. You can print a new page and you can do a little repair. Just tear the old one off and glue a new one in over it. If you find it's catching too much, you can put it in this way. That also looks good. I just liked shipping manifest inside to show a little bit and this little flap. It just felt dynamic. And then we have Skylift Express Logistics, just a little card about the courier. And there we go. That is it for the third spread. All right, we're going to turn the page here, and now we've got some boots and this pretty blue pattern. And we're going to start with another one of these little pockets that has the 3 cards that goes inside. This one is gray. And I'm going to put this in right about here. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that we didn't put the label on the first one. There are labels for these, and I'm not sure what happened to my label on the first one. It has gotten a miss. I laid everything out and somehow missed it. So give me 1 second. And I've got this custom orders. Let's flip right back. And we're going to place that right there on the pocket. There's also ones that say notes. I'm doing custom orders for the ones we're putting on the inside covers, and then I'm using notes for the ones that are in the center of the journal. But you can do that however you like. It is your project. And let's go ahead and pop notes on right here. There we go. And now on the left-hand page, we've got kind of a strappy thing going on here. I gave you all of the pieces, so if you wanted to make this a full functioning strap, you can. For this application, I don't think it's necessary, but we want it to look like it could function. So there are some light lines right above and below this S box. If you can't see them, don't worry about it. Just fold above and below it and make sure that it is straight. So like so. So you have something that looks like that. And before you glue anything, grab your shorter strap and see if it'll thread in, and it does. So we have this kind of a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down to itself. And then I'm going to line this up with the bottom of the page, and it's going to go kind of just over the tip of this arrow for placement. And I am going to glue the top and bottom of this so that this still can kind of move, and it's just for fun. You can glue the whole thing down if you want. It's no big deal. But I wanted it to feel like it could function instead of just giving you one long cardboard cutout strap. I thought it would make it more interesting. So cover up the tip of that kind of arrow piece, line up with the bottom of the page, and then we're going to glue this one to the top of the page like so. So I'm going to put some glue here, and we're going to use this as a tuck. And to use it as a tuck, we want it to be nice and tight. So I'm recommending we make this fused, and I'm going to glue, let's see how far this goes down. Goes quite a way. So I'm going to glue here. You can leave a little lift at the end, again, to create that illusion that it could function. Oop, can't see. Line this up at the top, and then it's glued down here. And then I'm just going to slide this little strappy thing right up so that you have the look and the feel of a functioning strap. I'm going to slide that just a little to make sure it lines up. Now we're going to flop back to the right-hand page, and I have a couple of waterfall pieces here. You're going to want to fold these right below this leather and rivet piece. You can see I've got a fold here on both of those, and I like to fold them back and forth a few times so that they function smoothly. And these are going to go here and just kind of cover up part of this little notes pouch. So you have to flip them up to get to the notes. I thought it was a fun interactive thing to do. So we're going to start with the top one, glue only on this top tab. And then I'm going to place it nearly at the top and centered on the page. So I want a little blue above this just for visual interest. And then I'm going to glue the second waterfall panel like so. I'm going to flip up the first one, and I'm going to nudge this one right under. Be careful, like I just tapped it to the page and I just got a little glue here, and if it dries there, it's not going to flip up. So I'm just going to kind of use my finger and get rid of that glue. But now I have these little flippy pages. And if you don't like how it's falling, like I don't care for that, I'm actually going to slide it down just a little bit. And I don't mind if there's a little gap there, or you can slide them both down just a little bit. There. Do a little adjustment. Yours may fall slightly differently, and that's okay. And now we have orders number 13, 14, and 15, the last couple of numbers. Those are going to pop in here. Whoop. In you go. And we have this cool, funky pin cushion looking piece, and that is going to go right into our tuck here. So I'm just going to slide that in at a cute little angle. It might poke out just a little bit, and I'm okay with it. And that is it for this spread. Now let's go ahead and turn the page. We've got this really cool steampunk scissors going on here, and I've got this spools of thread pocket. So this pocket is going to go on the page right about here. And I am going to glue 3 sides. And pop that in right like so. There's some little spools, those go towards the top. I'm going to leave a little space so you can see the stitching detail down below here. And we're going to add entry 3, pattern of deception, up to the top of this page. You can leave this as a flip. You can glue it all the way down. It's up to you. I will just glue the top, and you can see how that looks and decide if you want to leave it loose or if you want to have one less thing that can get damaged and glue it all the way down. I'm leaving quite a bit of space because I want to use this little seal at the top. So right like that. Let's grab another piece of our tape. This one is blue, and I'm going to tear one end and the other just to make a piece that's going to stretch across like so. Glue that down. And then I've got this little seal piece. I'm going to place that right over top to make it look fancy. Finally, we have a couple of pieces for the pocket. We have this dress, an interesting piece of machinery, and another alteration ticket. I picked the one about the torn lace over the evening gown, and I thought it worked really well with this card. Oh, and it looks like I also have a tab. So let's grab this card back out, and we're going to put the elegant tab on the top of that. I prepared all of my bits ahead of time. So far that has worked pretty well. So there we go, elegant. Got our tab, and this will slide right back in here. Remember, let your pockets dry well before you put your ephemera in. And now we're ready to move on to the next page. All right, so now we are working on the next spread, and I've got another one of these corner pieces, this one, and I'm going to pop that right up into this left-hand corner. So glue on 2 sides. 1, 2. Right like so. We're going to let that dry really well before we do anything with it. And then below, I have this really pretty blue pocket. So we're going to place that right here. Thin line of glue, remember. Mine got a little aggressive. And we're going to place that about yay. I like to leave a little space. I think it's a little more visually interesting. And then on this facing page, we have this clock piece that's going to be a belly band across the middle. So we're just going to glue these 2 sides about 1/4 of an inch or so in. Right in the center of the page. And then let's move this to the side while we build an envelope. So, and a bunch of stuff's going to fall out of here. There is an entire page of these little fabric swatches and they're going to go inside this envelope. However, if you have a fabric stash and some pinking shears, cut up some real fabric and stick in here. I think that would be an awful lot of fun. You can also see I've printed the back of my envelope with the Steampunk satin paper. That's optional, but I wanted it to feel kind of bougie, so I went ahead and did that. So this is going to be just like our last envelope. We've got two flaps that fold in like so, a flap that comes up at the bottom, and then our flap that comes down at the top to seal it. And same thing, it doesn't matter on this one which is on top and which is on the bottom, but we're just going to do a nice little strip of glue and a little more there. Make sure that we're gluing this shut pretty well. So glue those together and then glue this bottom flap up. I'm just going to kind of, I don't want to glue it at the bottom by accident, so I'm just kind of going around the top edge and sides like this. And then I can open this up and I can drop all my fun little fabric swatches inside. And this is going to go into the belly band. So wait for your belly band to dry. Mine's probably still a little wet, but it's going to fit right in there. If you feel like it's not tight enough, that this is going to fall out and it's not dry yet, you can very carefully peel it up and add just a little more glue. You can go a little further. Otherwise, you can just sneak a little glue under there using the tip of the bottle, if you're afraid of doing some damage by peeling that up. But this will slide right down in there, and I'm going to let that dry first before I do it. So here is entry 4, I believe, Roman numerals, not my strong point, the loose thread. And we're going to pop that right up into our corner. I have this fabric in a box that's going to go here, and then our automaton dragonfly is going to slide here. And then once this is dry for you, you can slide that fabric samples envelope right inside there. And we are ready to move on. Turning the page, we are going to do another set of straps. These are the straps with the gears on them. This is exactly the same as the previous one. So we're going to fold these and make our little loops. Remember, the lines are just above and below the boxes around the S monogram. And then I'm going to grab my glue and just glue those shut. And I'm going to do one of these, and then the other one I'll just do off camera. So you don't have to see it twice, just do it twice. So same thing, we've got our strap here. Make sure your strap flips through before gluing. It should be okay. And then we're going to go right about overlap that arrow. On this side, it's going to go the other way. I will show you both actually, because they go in different directions. So gluing the top and bottom of the strap to leave that movement in just for fun. Overlapping our arrow, lining up with the bottom of the page. We're going to stick that down. The monogram direction doesn't matter, just be aware of it on this spread since there's going to be 2 of them, that you might like it to look a certain way. And I'm going to glue the top, and then I'm going to glue, I'm not going to glue all the way up to the top on this one. I'm going to glue from this rivet section to here, just this little section here. I felt like on the first one that I did, it glued just a little too much. It was fine, but I would have liked a little less. And then I'm gluing under that rivet section there. Line up at the top of the page. And then you can just slide this little guy right over to complete the illusion. And now we're going to repeat this, but we're going to flip-flop this on the other side. So we want it to go this way. And you can decide if you want your monogrammed slide to face the same direction or a different direction. There's a quick crease. Glue, a little too much glue, stick that down, and then I'm going to slide that onto this strap, and I think I'm going to face it in for me. So if you did one out, do the other one out, and again, I'm going to use this arrow up at the top as a guide. I'm going to glue this here and here, line it up with the top of the page, make sure my monogram is the way I want it, and I'm going to overlap that little pointy arrow just a little bit. Try to get things relatively straight and even. And then this strap, I'm going to glue from the rivet area. I'm just going to do kind of a little inch block and then glue the rivet end of this, because we're facing up. Line it up with the bottom of the page. And get it lined up with that strap. And then slide our slide down. I think these are super cute. And then we have a couple of cards. There's this funky steampunk tape measure and a jar of buttons. We can slide. See, now we have a little more room. It's up to you if you want them to be kind of jaunty or directly under, or however you want them to fit in there. And here's our tape measure on this side. And we have a really simple center spread here. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one is going to be fun. We're going to do a pull-out piece. So let me sort some things out here. Journal entry, pocket. All right, so we have this cardstock piece here that has been printed on the back with the Kraken paper. My Kraken paper ended up upside down. That's on me, but it's going to work fine because we're going to put things over top of it. So don't worry about it if yours is upside down or right side up. It won't make a difference. So our Kraken paper's on the other side, and we want to fold here on this line and then here on this line so that we can make this pull-out piece that's going to move like this. I recommend folding it back and forth a few times so that it gets kind of an ease of movement, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this in as a tuck. So we're only gluing this little segment here. So this is a little tricky, but fold this flap over. Here's our bar. It's inside of the Clockwork Kraken. Folding that over, and we are gluing the folded edge, the top and the bottom, and leaving the rest open. So this is a pocket that's attached to something else. And you can put a little extra glue along this folded edge. We want to make sure that it stays stable and doesn't get torn out. I think the pieces I provided you are going to be okay there. Everything is folded up. And I'm going to center this on this page. I center it top to bottom, center it left to right, and give that a press down. And now we have this movement here. So double check that everything is straight. Mine got a little crooked. And then let it dry. Don't touch it. I know it's easy to want to go on, but let this kind of set up at least before you move to the next part. Once it's set up, we're going to get this Kraken piece and then a description of the inside of the Clockwork Kraken. And these are just going to glue right onto the respective panels right in the center. So, right like so. There we go. And I'm just going to center up on this panel, and then we have this cool Clockwork Kraken. And I'm going to glue that on the little flap. Right in the middle. And make sure you don't have any glue seeping out, because we're going to flip this out of the way. If you need to, you can set your scissors on it or something so that it's not popping up. And let's work on the right-hand page. We're just going to put a pocket on this page. I am using this one with the jacket and the mechanisms. And we're going to glue 3 sides, so left, right, and bottom. We're going to pop that in right like so. And that is everything glued in for these pages. Once everything is dry, then you can put in entry 5. Bartering with buttons can slide into the pocket. Oh, we do have another tab, meticulous. I'm going to go ahead and stick that on the jacket. I should check my things a little more before I move on, huh? There we go. So meticulous is going to be meticulously placed at the top of this jacket card. And into the pocket it goes. Got a jacket theme. It kind of goes with the journal entry. And then an alteration ticket that is monogrammed initials on the inside jacket pocket. And I just thought that brought me joy. It all was jacket centric. And then pull this open and we have a couple more cards. The hat on the bar next to a drink and the clock because we're running out of time in our story. And I'm going to tuck those right in there. If yours is popping up a whole bunch, don't worry, it will get tamed while the journal is shut and it should behave itself a little better in the future. And let's move on to the next spread. All right, so we're moving on to our pawn shop in the story, and we have another corner piece that's going to go up in the top right-hand corner, just like the other ones did. So just a little bit of glue like so. And then I'm going to glue that right onto the page in the right hand and top edges, even with the right hand and top edges. There we go. And on this left-hand page, there are a couple of these kind of drawer pieces, pockets. Make sure that they are facing the same direction or it could look a little odd. And we're going to place one down low, gluing 3 sides. Right, like so. And then the second one is not going to go very far above. I would leave about 1 inch. We're going to put something inside of it. So right about like that, nice and even, like so. So we've got some ephemera pieces. We've got another card with some fabric. We have a business card for the pawn shop. And we have this little book we're going to make, this little booklet. So it comes like this. And you're going to want to fold it in half so the pictures are on one side and the print is on the other. And then in half again. And then we're just going to glue this all together. So this is definitely more of a glue stick friendly project in the interest of time. I'm just doing a quick little swizzle here. Give that a little mush. And there we have a quick little book describing the pawn shop. And once your pockets are dry and your tuck is dry, this little book is going to go up into the top pocket. The card with the fabric goes in the bottom pocket along with the business card. And then our entry 6, Tailored Lies, is going to tuck up into this corner tuck. All right, turning our page, as long as we can get Tailored Lies to stay where it belongs. And we are going to do something kind of familiar again. This is going to be a repeat of our waterfall page. So we're going to place this little pocket here. I've already glued it together. That's going to go directly on the page. Our journal is starting to get a little fluffy now. So you can always use some kind of clips or a weight to hold the pages down a little more. I have my little dragon here somewhere. Here he is. He can go over the pages, but he'll also hold the pages down a little bit. And we have a repeat of our waterfall panel. So 1, 2, this time we have a suit and a really funky sewing machine. And we're gonna fold those top riveted pieces and glue them down just like we did before. So this is just a repeat of the previous page. I'm gonna center that up. Remember, we liked it just a little lower, so I'm gonna go a little lower. Same thing with this one. And I think I might slide this up a little if I can. So you can see my little pocket is sticking out this time, and I think I'm going to leave it be because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to pull things up. If I had done this fast enough, I could have slid this up, and now I'm just going to live with it. I think it's going to be fine. Mistakes happen, but you get the idea. These pop up. I've got this notes label. I'm going to put that on the front. Like so. And we have our final strap. And this one is going to go this way. So this is the same as the second one we did on the center spread. It's going to be that opposite direction. So we've folded our little slide, give that a little glue. Slide that on here. Glue the top and bottom. You should be a pro at this by now. This is our fourth one. And then find our little point here. Line up at the top of the page. And there we go. Slide our slide up out of the way. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the previous ones. We're going to glue right about here, 1.5 inches or so, and then the riveted end of the strap. And then slide our slide down. Easy peasy. There we go. To fill it up, once everything is dry, just a reminder, we've got number 16, 17, and 18. These are all going to go into the notes folder, pockets. And then we have this embroidery hoop with these funky gear embroidery bits, and those are going to go into our tuck. Turning the page. Definitely going to use my little weight here for now. And let's go ahead and grab our bits and bobs. So the right-hand page is going to get this really big pocket on it right at the bottom. So it is this one with the gowns on it, the outfits on it. And we're going to glue 3 sides. You can glue up just a little higher on this one because, again, it is a very deep pocket and I don't like to lose things. I want things to look perky and fun out over the top. So a little extra glue on that will help keep things up instead of sliding down in. And then on our facing page, we've got entry 7, pressed for time, and I'm going to glue that directly down to this page. We're going to do our little tape trick again. So just a quick swizzle of glue to hold that in place. And I'm using this tape here. It's kind of a gray tape. And we're going to do the corners again. So I'll tear a little piece of that tape off and do the top corner. Like so. And then I'm going to do the bottom corner here. Like this. And then just to zhuzh it up a little more, I've got this little seal label piece. And I'm going to pop that onto the top. Now we have our fabric and jacket, and it's up to you if you want. The little tab can go on either one of them. I'm going to put it on the fabric. And then slide these right into the pocket, like so. Let's turn our page so that we have a storefront for our rival tailor, and then this blue page. And I have another one of these big pockets that's facing the other direction, and that one is going to go here, like so. There we go. And then I have my final corner piece. That one is going to go up into this right-hand page corner. There we go. Right like that. And now, you guessed it, we get to do some more collage work on this pocket. So, let's see here. I have a couple pieces of tape, and I think I'm going to grab this last piece of gray. I had a little gray left from the last page. I like that better than the blue. The blue is too matchy-matchy. And then I have a little piece of brown zigzag. So I'm going to tear a piece of that off as well. And I'm going to do a little crisscross here, right about like that. We're just building some layers, just to create some interest underneath, like that. There we go. Have our other gear fussy cut. That is going to pop right up here, and this time I'm not going to over glue and end up with glue outside of my pocket. And it does kind of have a right way up. I wouldn't fret over it. And we've got our dress. I'm going to place that on here. And then again, you can use any button you like. I'm using this button with the bird on it. Thought it was very pretty and elegant. And I'm going to put that on right like so. Now we have entry 8, which is our final entry, the final cut. Once everything is dry, you can tuck that up in here. We have a fabric swatch with a gear on it that is also going to tuck up in there. And I've chosen a card to represent the rival tailor. Tailor also has an apprentice, so you could get another card to represent him. You can put anything you like in here. There are also a few extra ephemera pieces that can go in here. So fill this up however you like, but these are the ones that I have chosen. And that is it for this spread, and we are on to the back cover. So the back cover is going to mirror the front cover in that we are going to put another one of these pockets with the zigzags on. So gluing the left, right, and bottom of this. And then gluing up about 1.5 inches so that things don't disappear into our pocket. I'm just going to line that up at the bottom, like so. And then we have another custom order pocket. I have neglected to glue this one. This is the last one of these. Pop a little glue on here. And then glue the back of it. Like so. To leave just a little room here. There is a Steam and Satin label. I'm going to center that up and use the stitches as a guide to kind of make sure it's even or right where I want it to be. And then on this other side, we have our other tuck pocket that's going to go on the outside edge. So flip it, and this time we're gluing the top, the right, and the bottom. And then that is going to go right up against this edge and then line up at the top and bottom. And remember, if you have some overhang, you can trim that off later if you need to. And then we have this same strap configuration. Remember, we fold this little brass tab here, little rivet tab. We're going to fold that, Put a little ink on the back and then glue the other strap to the back so it's double-sided. Line everything up nice and neat. And then this tab is going to get glued down to the journal. So we'll find about the center, glue on the tab only, find the middle, and then just kind of curl that around the edge. Your journal will have gotten quite fat by now. And then we're going to glue this little holder, little strap, just a tiny bit of glue at each end. Be neat so you don't glue your strap in. And then I am going to put that on, and then I'm going to put something heavy on it. I'll flip my dragon over so it can dry. And then let all of this dry really well before inserting your ephemera. So once it's dry, we have this pair of scissors that's going to go up here in this top pocket. Another alteration ticket can go in with it. Oh, our custom order label. We missed it, just like we missed the first one. At least it was in there this time. So let's glue that. Pop that onto the envelope. And then our last three orders, 19, 20, and 21, will slide in here. And then once this strap is ready, you can open that up, and we have two more custom orders sheets, and we're just going to slide those in like so, and then pop this back together. Mine was maybe not quite dry, so there we go. And that is it for the interior of the journal. And we have a nice little fluffy journal going on. And we're going to add decorations to the outside. So what I'm going to recommend is that you find the center of your journal and then flip it over, right like that, so that it's a little easier to work on the outside of the journal. And we have two panels that are going to go on, one on the front and one on the back. The one on the front, or the right-hand side, is this darker one, and it's going to have a pocket that goes over it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. Like so. And just center that up on the front cover. And then keeping my strings out of the way, I'm going to do the same thing with this back panel. There we go. Right like that. And you won't even really see your seam at all. Flip my strings back out of the way again, and let's add a pocket. These spools of thread, we're going to glue on three sides. Top, the right, if you have it flipped the right way, and then, oops, I got way off track there. And then the bottom. So you want the left-hand side, when it's flipped the correct way, glued. You want it to be open on the right. And then there are a couple of pieces of ephemera that once that's dry, they can tuck in there. Plus we have this Steam and Satin label. Now this label can go here. Or you can punch some holes in this and add some lace and use it as a tie for your journal. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've got my big crocodile here. It's just got a big hole punch in it. And I'm going to punch holes. And I don't feel like looking for my brads. I do recommend you reinforce this with a little eyelet or something like that to hold up in there. But since I want to do this fairly quickly for you, I'm going to grab some lace. So here's my lace from earlier. This is just basic lace, about, I don't know, an inch wide. And we're going to want it to be long enough so that we can wrap it around the whole journal. So let's go ahead and close this back up. And I'll see how long of a piece I have here. We're going to want it to go, this does go around a couple times, and it's going to help keep everything shut. So I'm going to cut this in half. And I measured it really quickly, and each piece is about 34 inches. So I'm just going to thread this through. Again, please do use an eyelet, or else your paper is going to tear eventually, and I'm just going to put that through. Give this a little tie. Little knots. And you can always print a second one of these and glue them back to back. That will make it stronger as well. I don't know how I got so far off screen, but same thing on this side. Pop it through. It's just a quick idea on a way to finish this. But if you don't want to mess with this, you can just glue the label right on the front somewhere and jam those cards in and call it a day. And just wrap a piece of fabric around, and just wrap a piece of trim around by itself without doing this. So you can still wrap it with lace to keep it shut and to keep those cards in, but it doesn't have to be quite this complex. So now I've got kind of a wrap that I can do. I'm trying not to, there we go. So I can just bring it around, and you get the idea. Make it stable. Make it so it holds up. You can even back that on some heavy decorative cardboard or something. And you can see this is a little long, so the 34 inches on each piece was a bit long, but that makes for a pretty tie to finish it off. So there is my idea for you. Finally, I did say I would revisit some of those extra items. So go through your journal. You can punch holes and add lace and ribbon to things. You can run lace up the sides of your pages to make them decorative. You can grab some of these gears and add real gears onto some of the pages and hang them off of your strings. There's so many different things that you can do to bring more life to this, to add your own special touches to it, that it's really endless, and that is up to you. If you're happy with this just as is, you can just leave it be and enjoy it exactly the way it's been put together, and that's all right as well. Thank you so much for crafting along with me in this tutorial. I hope you really enjoyed putting together this Steam and Satin journal, and that you are going to be well on your way to making it your own. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, click the little bell icon, and I will see you in the next video.